And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Today, lawyers for the Obama administration had a tough time as they tried to get a judge to toss out a Republican lawsuit over the Affordable Care Act. This was the first major hearing on the challenge. The Department of Health and Human Services argued the House doesn't have the legal standing to challenge the way the administration implements Obamacare. Republicans say the administration unlawfully bypassed Congress. At issue are executive changes authorizing Treasury payments to health care insurers without the funding being agreed by Congress. Federal Judge Rosemary Collyer, a Bush appointee, told administration lawyers they haven't directly addressed the arguments made by Republicans. Collyer asked the administration to explain why its actions are not an insult to the Constitution. She didn't say when she would rule on the administration's request. Let's all look into our crystal balls, shall we? What is the future of Obamacare, Rabbi Hershey?
I think it depends who wins the next election, really. I think it's very hard to prognosticate until we know who takes the presidency, because I think one of two things will happen. If a Republican takes it, the likelihood of real challenges, which will at least require reconstructing the law, I don't think it's going to get canceled completely, are very real. If Hillary, that's going to be the Democratic candidate, wins, then I think actually she delays things long enough that it becomes normal, people adjust to it, and we move on whether we like it or not.
Can the toothpaste be put back in the tube at this point with all the enrollees that they have? And if you're a Republican candidate, you have to offer an alternative. It can't be just repeal. Okay, well, what are you going to do with all those people that are enrolled?
Well, that's what's going on right now. When we were talking about this a little bit yesterday, that if the Supreme Court, it's before the Supreme Court right now, and there's a good chance that that part of it will be overturned, and then in which case the Republicans have to come up with something to find a way to put the toothpaste back in the tube or put it on a different tooth.
Good thing. You could have said unring the bell as well,
The
Rick.
future of Obamacare will be decided in the next 2 weeks, because we'll have that decision, and it's pick 'em. Nobody has any idea which way this is going to go. So that is it. Now, here's what makes it a little bit odd. What's probably going to happen if the court rules that that you cannot offer the subsidies in states where they're not running their own exchange, where the federal government is, then there will be a bill put in by the Republicans. We talked about it last night. Senator Johnson of Wisconsin has already proposed it. He's getting some guff on it, but it would basically hold things as they are through 2017. In other words, past the election, and that's where what you're saying could come into play. But even if it's a Democratic president, if we get to 2017 and both houses are still controlled by the Republicans, now you're going to see some real weird stuff, because the Republicans can't come up with a way to fix Obamacare. This is the little secret nobody ever wants to discuss, because the way we are handling it is the only way you can cover pre-existing conditions. Since the dawn of mankind, we have not found another way to make that happen, and that's why they'll never be able to get around it. So,
do you think Hillary Clinton will run on Obamacare, or she just kind of won't mention it?
Well, I think a lot will
because
have to
the
do
president
with
thinks
this ruling.
it's a success.
Yes, and I think a lot will have to do with this ruling. I mean, we'll know in the next, and then by then, again, we've got a long time to figure out what's going to happen as a result of this ruling with the Supreme Court, and then she can have time to sort of adjust her sails.
And Hillary won't make her call on this kind of an issue based on what the president thinks. She'll make it based on what the public thinks. And the public, while they're getting better on the issue, they still do not favor the law. They don't understand why. They think they do, but they don't favor it.
In 1993, Hillary Clinton actually was tasked with creating universal health care, and it got shot down, including by people in her own party. It was just seen as too bulky. Maybe it was before its time. Who knows? So I'd be curious if she then she's clearly shown that she's willing to run away from herself on certain issues, like immigration, for instance, right? So I'm just fascinated with this. Was supposed to be such a huge presidential topic during the campaign, and I have a feeling it's going to be kind of ignored by both sides.
Yes. What Hillary Clinton does not get credit for is that what she did in '93, while it did go down in flames, played an incredibly important role in the creation of Obamacare, if for no other reason than the response of the Republicans to what Hillary proposed. The Heritage Foundation was basically Obamacare.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Many of the things, Heritage, a landmark study. So I think with all these shifts, they're evolutionary in nature, which is why I wouldn't even hold it against her running away from herself. You play certain roles in the evolution of an idea well ahead of its implementation. And I think that's what we're seeing here, which is why I think ultimately, long-term crystal ball, some version of this makes it, but I think in ways that are going to be significantly altered over the next call it 2 to 4 years.
Can it
And
survive?
that's the way it
if
should
it's
be,
not-
by the way.
Right.
Legislation's supposed to be amended and changed as you learn
It's an evolving-
from
it's
the
a work in
experience.
progress.
Right. The only reason we're not approaching it this way is that the Republicans had so much success in taking a strong opposition to it. It worked for them.
Sure.
Right.
So that's why we got into this position we're in. There's nothing unusual about seeing what works and what doesn't and amending it.
No, and language is so important, right? So if you are a Democrat and you do bring up Obamacare, the trick is don't call it Obamacare. Call it the Affordable
Affordable
Care
Care
Act.
Act. And
The
then
Jimmy
people love
Kimmel,
it.
the
That's
Jimmy
right.
Kimmel video where he goes out into the street like you do, and he asks people, "Do you agree with the Affordable Care Act?" Absolutely do.
Yes, love that.
Obamacare,
Affordable
that's
care,
the worst.
beautiful.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
it shows how informed we are or are not. Anyway, coming up next, it's potluck time. Heather and Rick will share their favorite stories of the day next. This is the Daily Wrap. You are not allowed to go anywhere.